I taught my 4-year-old how to read in 100 easy lessons, and I want to share with you exactly what steps I took to help her learn to read, because she is reading fluently now at the age of 4 years old. I have quite a few resources here to talk to you guys about, so I'm just going to jump right into the video. This is the book that we use, Teach Your Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons. In this book, in the very beginning, there is a parent guide, and in the parent guide, it explains to you how there's a dialogue that takes place in the book. It gives you everything to say to your child, how to praise your child, how to correct your child gently, and it helps guide you to helping your child learn to read. When Alexa first started this book, before she even started at like 18 months, I taught her her letter sounds. I had been working with her letter sounds for many months leading up to this. Many years really. And then also she knew the alphabet, she knew her ABCs, and so she had been homeschooled for a while before I taught her to read. Why I decided to teach Alexa at 4 years old to read was because she was asking me everything. What does this say, mommy? What does that say, mommy? She was very interested in reading. So that's the first step that I would say, is make sure that your child is developmentally able to learn to read and also has the maturity to sit there for an extended period of time. Now, these lessons are supposed to take about 20 minutes per lesson, and I found that to be very spot on in terms of it was always right around 20 minutes. So your child needs to be able to sit down and focus for 20 minutes without interruption. And if you have a 3.5-year-old, like my 3.5-year-old twins right now, they are very squirmy. And so if you have a very mature 3.5-year-old, the book says that you can attempt it. But I think 4 years old was the perfect age for us. Alexa started in February. She turned 4 in December. So she was 4 years and 2 months. And, she was giving me all the signs that she was ready to learn to read. And so I got off social media. I got off of, I stopped teaching, and I took it really seriously. So that's another tip that I would give you, is to make sure that you have the time to devote. Now, this is 20 minutes a day, but you also have to think about when in a day your child would be able to do it. Charlotte and Wesley were still taking naps. That's my 3.5-year-old twins. And so during their nap time, I was able to sit down with Alexa, who didn't really need a nap, and help her go through the lessons. The lessons start off very slow. They start off with learning the letter sounds very slowly. And so my fourth tip is to make sure that you know how to properly say the letter sounds. I was an ESL teacher, and so I had a lot of training in this, because from the very beginning, when you're teaching children in China, you have to be able to say the letter sounds correctly up to their current standards. So for example, instead of saying huh for the letter H, it's a breath. It's like P is p, p, p. It's not puh, because when you say puh and you try to blend, then you're saying puh, and it might not have a U. Like in pumpkin, that would be fine, but in like pat, puh-at. And so you must say the letter sounds correctly. So there's a YouTube video where the actual author of this book walks you through the letter sounds. If I can find it, I'll link it down below. There's also some good YouTubers. Look up ESL teacher letter sounds, because they have the best diction and the best training when it comes to teaching you the letter sounds. And if you guys want a video on teaching letter sounds, I can put that out there. I think someone asked for that before, and I just haven't gotten around to it. So the lessons start off very slow. I read the teacher guide. I followed the script pretty much to the T in the book. I was absolutely blown away by lesson 30 or so, she was already reading, and by lesson 50, she was reading well, and by lesson 90, she was, it is actually astounding. So I bought these books, the Bob Books collections, because a lot of people say this is the logical next step. I do not agree, actually, because I bought all 3 levels of these. Teach Your Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons says that at the very end, your child should read on a first to second grade reading level. Well, I can attest to that. I'm going to put some clips in at the end of Alexa reading. Alexa reads fluently, at least on a second grade reading level. And so these books the mat and the cat and the bat. It's very, very, very intro. In fact, I think you could teach your child to read using Bob books if you just taught your child the letter sounds and then went to these Bob books. But I don't find them incredibly helpful for as a transition. Better yet, some of the introductory Dr. Seuss books are wonderful. I bought all the Biscuit books. I bought Elephant and Piggy series, so it's 25 books in a set, a little over $100 on Amazon. Those are a wonderful logical next step because it really introduces how the sentences change, given punctuation, so exclamation points, question marks. They repeat the same sentence in the book over and over and over, but they change the punctuation, and so it helps your child really with comprehension. So I love the Elephant and Piggy books as a next step after this. So the way that we went through this, I took 20 minutes a day to sit down with Alexa and help her through this. Some little notes that I would say is, for one, with the rhyming in the very beginning, a lot of students really struggle with rhyming early on. They don't understand the concept. They understand cat rhymes with bat, but if you say, I'm thinking of a word that rhymes with hat, and then you give them the letter C and you say cat, it's very difficult for them to understand, what are we doing? Are we reading the word? Are we like, you're saying rhyming, but I don't really understand what that is. My daughter struggled a little bit with that. We did it every day, but I did not let that bog us down that she wasn't 100% getting the rhyming. In fact, about 20, 30 lessons in, they dropped the rhyming altogether. It's just that rhyming is a great skill that helps early readers be able to navigate words without pausing at every single word. It helps them with fluency. And so that's why they introduced that early on and Teach Your Child to Read. Another note that I will say is that at the end of Teach Your Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons, lessons 70, 80, and 90, I found they were asking us to read very long stories twice. And we did that, I would say, 50, 60% of the time. If she read the story fluently the first time without too many hiccups, I didn't necessarily make her reread that story every single time. So that's also something to keep in mind. Your child will still learn to read very well if they haven't mastered rhyming in the very beginning, and if they're not rereading those stories. Now, we did reread those stories a lot. I say we got up to lesson 70, and then around 70, I just found that she was reading so fluently, I just didn't see the point in having her reread. Another thing is that the book briefly introduces sight words, and so what I did to accompany that was I bought these sight word readers, the Party. They're called sight word readers on Amazon, and these really helped. I don't really think they're a ton necessary because, especially if you start at 4 years old, their brains are like sponges. So I found that Alexa really, like, if I showed her what a word was and, once or twice, she was able to remember that word the next time. And I didn't really need these, but these are a great supplement if your child struggles with sight reading. Another thing that I did was I bought these sight word. Now, let me just be clear. This is a phonics-based program, and phonics is the focus. And so you want to make sure your child has mastered phonics, mastered letter sounds before you even think about introducing sight words. They should be able to sound out the majority of words, decodable words first, and then you would go to the sight word readers at the end once they've mastered blending and mastered sounding out words, because some words you can't sound out, and that's what sight words are. So I found that once Alexa had totally mastered decodable words where she's sounding out words, then I was able to go to the sight word readers and help her with some of those words that are exceptions to the rules, so to speak. Another thing that I did to help Alexa with literacy, I bought all of the Roald Dahl books. These books are actually pretty rudimentary. They're pretty easy to read. Now, these are really for second to third grade readers. So what I do is I actually read with her and have her sit with me. Now that we're done with Teach Your Child to Read, I have her sit with me and watch me as I point out the words and read, and we read this together. I also do it as a read aloud for my twins. We have fantastic Mr. Fox and James and the Giant Peach and a lot of other of these books. They're on my shelf in there, but I find that reading aloud is also wonderful in exposing your children to a lot of different vocabulary. And I'll point out a difficult word to her and let her take a look at that. Teach Your Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons is wonderful because it really takes them step by step in developing that fluency. So you start off, like I said, you're sounding out one letter, then you're sounding out 2-letter words, then you're sounding out 3-letter words, and then sentences. And so one thing, how I motivated Alexa, because a lot of people say that they find this content really dry and that they find that their kids cannot focus. I did not find that to be true for Alexa. Now, every child is different, and my twins may be totally different when I go to teach them to read. But Alexa has that birth order first child, like want to do it well, wants to learn, eager personality. And so I didn't really have to motivate her very much. But in the very end, if I found that she was tripping up over some of the same words or something like that, I would say, okay, if you read this again, then I'll give you 3 gummies. Or if you read this again, then I will let you color the pictures. And so as you can see here, she colored a lot of pictures throughout this book as a reward for her doing it. I would say if you want to make your book a piece of art, then you have to read it a second time. I found that a little bit of bribery, a little bit of incentivizing goes a long way, especially on days when they're not feeling it. And that's another thing I'll mention. If there is a day where they're just tired, they're not feeling it, don't pressure them to learn. Don't force them. If you make it into a negative thing, it's going to go downhill fast. It always has to be fun. It always has to be positive. And it always has to be a time when it's one-on-one with you that you make it your special time. So Charlotte and Wesley had to take a nap, and while they were napping, Alexa was learning to read. And so I just found that because it was a special time where she got to stay up and she didn't have to have quiet time, she already found it as like a positive thing. You want to keep it positive from start to finish. There's going to be times when they're wiggly. There are going to be times when it's frustrating and they don't want to do it. If that's the case, pack it up and try it again the next day. Do not force it, because if you force it, if you start yelling, if you start saying, if you don't learn to read or blah, 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 it's going to make it a negative experience. And you want to keep it positive start to finish, because as a parent, it can get very frustrating and you might lose your patience if you feel like you've gone over the same concept and they're not getting it. But remember, your mind is not the mind of a child. A child is only able to absorb so much. And so if they have overloaded their brains in other aspects throughout the day or learning in homeschool in other ways, then it may be difficult for them to get through a lesson. And if that's the case, just give them a break, because this program is worth doing start to finish. If you find it boring, if you find it mundane, I've seen other YouTubers say that they found that to be the case, but just stick with it, because my 4-year-old learned to read. And when I say she's devouring everything, she reads very fluently, and it just took 20 minutes a day. We took about 3 months to do this. So it says 100 easy lessons. We actually did it on the weekends as well. We took off on Sundays, but we did it Monday through Saturday, every single week, until we finished it. And we finished it right before my 4th baby was born. And I really worried that we were going into a busy season where I would be with Mia a lot and nursing her and breastfeeding her and pumping for her, and how was I going to keep up with Alexa's reading? But what I found was that once she got through this book and she was fluent in reading, she was reading on her own. She wasn't even needing to sit with me to read. It was actually really astounding. And throughout the whole newborn phase, I bought those 25 Elephant and Piggy books, and she'll just go to the bookshelf and pick them up and read them herself. I'll have her read to me for about 20 minutes a day on days when I can, but I don't really have to sit with her and read. The only thing with Alexa is that she is so independent that she likes reading on her own, and I have to make her read to me sometimes to make sure that she's not misreading some words. Like, I think she was saying hair for here one time, and I was like kind of halfway listening to her reading to herself, and I said, Alexa, does that make sense in context? Does it say hair or here? It's like hair. And she was like, oh, it's here, mommy. And so I do like to sit with her, because she is an emerging reader. She is still an early reader. And I want to make sure that she's getting that accuracy along with the fluency. So reading aloud, making sure that at the end you're doing the sight word readers, or some practicing of sight words. In our homeschool, we would do sight word worksheets every day that just Alexa would do, because the others obviously weren't learning to read yet. And so I fully intend to use this. One last thing I want to show you is that I actually got this hundreds chart from Teacher Pay Teacher, and every single day she was allowed to put a sticker on the day that the lesson that she completed. And on the 10th lesson, every single 10th lesson, we went out for ice cream with the whole family, and we were like, yay, Alexa, you finished another 10 lessons. It's really important to give your children the encouragement to set that goal, to meet that goal, to finish what they start. And Alexa was able to do that, and we had our little reading celebration at the very end once we reached the 100th lesson. But I would say that if you want your child to read fluently, take the time to buy this book, sit down with them, and no matter how frustrating it gets, no matter how much you want to quit, keep going. Because when you give your child the gift of literacy, it opens their mind to a whole other world of possibility. Alexa's imagination expanded, her vocabulary expanded, her ability to communicate expanded. Everything about her mind expanded once she learned to read. And when I was learning in ESL, they were talking about how from the ages of 2 to 6, that is the language acquisition phase of your child's life. And children acquire language very well between the ages of 2 and 6. And after 6, it becomes difficult. Your brain kind of starts closing up and being what it's going to be. But before that, it's like your brain is a sponge. And my sister teaches first graders, and she says that Alexa reads infinitely better than her first graders. And she thinks it's because they're going into school at 5 years old. And she was also an ESL teacher. And then, they're really starting to learn to read at 6, 7 years old, when that window is starting to close. And that's not to say your kid can't learn to read after 6. It's just to say that language acquisition, your ability to really absorb information, and really just learn at an incredible rate, is from 2 to 6 years old. And so you really, really, really want to focus in on those years and getting your child ready. So with my 3.5-year-old twins, we've spent the last 3.5 years slowly building that literacy by learning letter sounds and really focusing on lowercase letters and letter sounds, and not so much as the letter names like A, B, C, D. And at the end of Teach Your Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons, they actually do start teaching the letter names. But Alexa already knew that, because when she was a baby, you learn the ABC song, and I would show her flashcards, and she already knew all the letters and the letter names. And so, so going into it, it really helps to have a foundation. But honestly, I think that this book is really good at taking a child who doesn't have much foundation at all and helping them acquire the skills to learn to read. It's just a lot easier if you teach your children very quickly the letter sounds. And let me show you how I do that. So before the newborn phase, every day I would practice with my twins. I have these flashcards that I made, just printed them off. I made a Word document, printed it off on colorful paper, printed it out, very simple, and I put them on this Dollar Tree ring. And we just go through very quickly and say, J, K. Ooh. And so we go through the letter sounds every day, or we did before I had a newborn. But we're going to get back to that very, very soon. And then JDA has this printable on her website, and it's just practicing very simple blending of decodable words. App, lap. And so I would go through this every single day of homeschool last year with my twins, and they're already able to read these simple words very easily. And then I'll flip it over and say, oh, you got it right. And we kind of make it a game. And so practice with letter sounds and practice with very, very simple CBC words is what they're called. Decodable words, and then start this. And if you do that, you're really going to build a strong foundation to make it easy for your child to learn to read. So anyway, if you guys have any questions about this, please leave them in the comments below. I'm a little bit of a mess. I have a newborn. Forgive the fact that I don't have makeup and I'm not all bells and whistles. I just wanted to get this out to you guys because it is so important that I share this with you, because it's really mind-blowing. The footage of Alexa reading throughout Teach Your Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons. We're going to rhyme with the word at. Ready? Mat.
Mat.
Very good. Me.
Okay.
Now you do it yourself.
Me.
Good. Say it fast.
Me.
Very good, Alexa. What's that word?
Me.
Me. That's right. Good. Let's start at the top.
Ant.
Good.
Can
Good.
eat
Good.
a seed.
Perfect.
The horse got to the car. The horse said, I do not need gas. I eat grass.
So what does the horse eat?
He eats grass.
Grass.
The fat eagle.
Good.
There was an eagle that was fat. The other eagles made fun of the fat eagle. Will you let me play? No, you are too small.
Excellent. Reading of that.
Like honey on toast. That is the breakfast rat. Oh, what's this one?
That? You said that?
That is the breakfast. I see a pig and a sheep and a duck and a rabbit and a mouse. Say mouse. A dear little mouse.
Very good reading, Alexa.
And mouse go over to frog.
Very good. We just opened this book for the first time. Alexa's never read this one.
You see in the pond. As now, I see 7
Sillies. Answered.
Frog. Sillies. Asked the pig and the sheep and the goat and the rabbit and the hen and the mouse. What do you mean?
Very good reading, sweetie.